I love teaching. The whole purpose of teaching is to help our students go out there and be amazing citizens in this country. That graduation day is the best day because that's what we've all worked for. We made it, and I helped them, and they helped themselves too. And I couldn't see myself doing anything else, quite honestly.
Some say teaching is the highest calling. That's why Governor Jim Hunt led an effort to raise teacher pay in the 90s.
The people of this state want good schools. They want good public schools. And they really want good teachers.
But from 2001 to 2014, North Carolina's national ranking in teacher pay dropped from 19th to 47th.
We consistently undervalue the value of what education does for our society.
Governor Pat McCrory is proposing an average 5% pay hike for teachers.
This is extremely welcome news for educators and their administrators also.
But State Superintendent of Education June Atkinson says the pay raise should be double that.
Our teachers have not gotten into education to become millionaires, yet they did not take a vow of poverty either.
Legislative leaders say they will look at another teacher pay raise during the short session that began this week.
I believe this General Assembly and Republicans are committed to raising teacher salaries and getting up to the national average.
But teachers are skeptical.
North Carolina just doesn't care that much about their teachers. I wake up around 6 o'clock every morning.
Siobhan Hairston is a social studies teacher at Raleigh's Athens Drive High School.
I don't dread going to work because I love my kids so much, and I love what I'm doing for society, and I know that I'm doing something to help somebody's life. I have to be at school around 6:55, 7 o'clock in the morning, and from there, school starts at 7:25. And so that 20 minutes or so gives me a chance to, get everything together for the day. All right, good morning.
For the next 3 hours, Siobhan teaches back-to-back periods of social studies.
You're going to create your perfect school. If you could make school exactly the way you wanted it, bless you. I mean, I love teaching them and seeing this sparkle in their eye when they learn something new, or when I teach them something they're like, oh, I never knew that. That's kind of cool, and engaging them in the lesson. Ah, that's good. I like that. That's really creative. I really like that motto because that's important. But it's really just getting to know them that I enjoy the most. Spending time with them, talking to them about things that are going on in their life, whether it be good or bad. After that second block, I'm like, whew, lunchtime.
Siobhan's 50-minute lunch period starts at 10:25. It's divided into 2 halves. Today, she hoped to spend the first half catching up on emails while squeezing in a bite to eat.
I don't like you. And I'm like, oh my God.
Instead, she has to help break up a fight between 2 students.
Just let it go. Whatever it is, let it go for right now. Why would you do this in school?
Then she has to get to the bottom of why it happened in hopes that it would not happen again.
If you got an anger problem, you know you have an anger problem. Yeah. You know you have an issue. You know you have a problem.
She continues her lunch on foot as she heads to the second half of the lunch period. And today's lunch period task? Serving as a cafeteria monitor.
Oh, no. They always come in my class during lunch. They sit in there all the time. So every day at lunch, we have something different that we have to do.
From meetings with other teachers.
When I came back, everything was out of control.
To tutoring students.
I don't really get a lunch, but it's okay. Y'all go ahead and get your notebooks out. We're going to finish up the notes from yesterday.
After lunch, Siobhan teaches an American history class.
Roosevelt wins again. He runs and is elected 4 times. Class sizes are fairly large, and I can't give everybody my undivided attention all the time. Then in a little bit, you guys will get together and share. Cool. Kids that won't try, or they're having a really hard time, or they're having some terrible things going on in their personal life, and they've shared that with you, and you just feel stressed out because they're stressed out. And kind of taking that on internally can be very difficult.
So is finding time.
The stress of managing everything all at once and having to wear so many hats in one day. I'm a nurse, I'm a teacher, I'm a pseudo-parent.
Siobhan's fourth period of the day is supposed to be her planning period.
My planning period, I get a lot of grading done.
But today, she's spending most of it responding to emails and phone calls from parents.
And I was just calling to let you know that she did not pass the third quarter in the class.
Yeah, it's a lot going on at one time in an hour.
And you get your report cards tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
School's out at 2:18, but Siobhan's day isn't over.
And kind of fulfilling those things.
Siobhan has an after-school meeting with a student.
How do you define identity?
Oh, Laura.
After the meeting, Siobhan leaves with a colleague for a 20-minute coffee break and a break from school.
I'm tired. Yeah, we can go ahead and go in here.
At 3:30, she's back to help interview a candidate for a teaching position.
I heard about Athens actually through my friends.
It's one of her roles as co-chair of the social studies department. Sometimes there are after-school meetings with parents too.
Or just trying to catch up on work.
It's nearly 5 o'clock and Siobhan's school day is finally over.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. You too, Friday.
She makes a 20-minute commute back home through rush hour traffic. It's looking like another 50 or more hour work week.
Once I come home, it's relaxing for a little bit, eating, getting myself mentally prepared for the next day. I didn't get into teaching for the pay. I got into teaching because I love what I do, and I knew I wanted to make a difference in the world. You wouldn't have doctors without teachers. You wouldn't have lawyers without teachers.
But as a professional with a 4-year NC State degree and 5 years experience, Siobhan does not think her state salary matches the value of her work or the work of other public school teachers in North Carolina.
Unfortunately, we feel very underappreciated in society because our value isn't seen by others.
The state puts a value of $36,500 a year on Siobhan's career. Wake County adds about another $6,400, bringing her total annual salary to just under $43,000 a year. But under the state's current pay structure,
I would have to teach for 25, 30 years before I could even get to $50,000.
Siobhan says she has a friend who makes just as much answering phones. And she says her other college-educated peers are doing far better too.
I can tell that they make a lot more money than I do because they're able to do things that I can't do without thinking about it first.
You can be studying for the quiz that you have tomorrow.
In society, sometimes teachers aren't seen as professionals. Sometimes we're seen as babysitters.
What does it take to be a good teacher?
Next, North Carolina's low national ranking in average teacher pay and its cost to our state.
Replacing a teacher has its own cost and has also a direct effect on kids and their learning.
And the debate over what to pay our teachers.
We have the money to do it.
I am proposing a 4% pay raise for teachers.
At the start of his fourth term in 1997, Governor Jim Hunt asked a Republican-controlled House and a Democratic-controlled Senate to raise teacher pay in North Carolina to the national average in 4 years. He had the backing of more than a dozen CEOs of some of the state's most successful companies.
It is the #1 economic development issue.
The effort got North Carolina to 19th in the nation, less than $2,000 from the national average. But after Hunt left office, our state's ranking plummeted. By 2014, we ranked 47th, nearly $12,000 under the national average.
What's that been like to see that decline?
I'm really distressed because I know that this means North Carolina. It means that we have slipped in how people look at us, whether or not companies want to come here, but mainly what's happening to our children and our grandchildren.
Children losing their teachers.
25 divided by 5 gives us?
A State Department of Public Instruction study shows an increase in teacher turnover over the last 5 years. Some teachers have left North Carolina to teach in states where the pay is higher. Average pay is higher in the states that border North Carolina.
And as we see our economy improve in North Carolina, We also face the threat of teachers leaving the profession and going to work for businesses across North Carolina.
Atkinson says teacher shortages and teacher turnover are disrupting schools.
You're always starting over, and starting over every year in every classroom or in every school is not in the best interest of each child in our state. It's not in the best interest of all of our children.
So an ability to impact student achievement, right?
Eric Hauk agrees that teacher turnover hurts student learning. He's a professor of educational leadership and policy at the University of North Carolina School of Education. He says there's a financial cost to high teacher turnover, something he calls churn.
And so the more churn you have in a system writ large, the more of your finite resources are consumed by handling that problem.
The problem of constantly trying to find and hire teachers to replace ones who've left. Hauk says investing in teacher salaries helps solve that problem and creates a healthier school system.
The healthy system itself overall yields better outcomes for kids.
Even though it's difficult to make a direct connection between teacher salary dollars and student test scores.
Business models in other sectors, in the nonprofit and for-profit sectors, already acknowledge that salary is an important part of a comprehensive human resources package that helps people stay in their jobs and feel successful in doing them.
North Carolina's teacher pay ranking also hurts the state's reputation in the eyes of businesses looking to locate here.
One of the things that we know that groups look at is the quality of the education system in a state. And the quality of the education system is often proxied by these rankings.
Our state also ranks low nationally in per pupil spending. It's 46th. That could signal a lack of commitment to education.
We know that additional resources put into the education system yield additional output, so more money does matter.
Notices and announcements.
Representative Nelson Dollar, who is chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, blames the state's decline in teacher salary ranking on Democratic governors and legislatures dropping the ball after Jim Hunt left office.
Even with passage of the state lottery, teacher pay actually continued to decrease as compared to the national average.
He says the Great Recession was a major factor too.
The Democrats who were in charge at the time cut $1 billion out of education. I'm sure they would argue that was out of necessity.
Dollar says it was necessary to continue some cutting after Republicans took control of the legislature in 2013. They cut teaching assistant positions, bonuses for earning master's degrees, and froze teacher salaries. The cuts sparked protests, and some even upset the newly elected Republican governor.
I encourage you to support our efforts to reinstate master's pay for those teachers that are currently in the program.
In 2015, the legislature did raise entry-level salaries for teachers from about $31,000 to $35,000.
So we put our money there first to, frankly, retain those high-quality younger teachers that we want to stay in the system for the next 20 years.
The legislature also gave teachers and state employees a $750 bonus and adjusted the teacher salary schedule to increase salaries as teachers gain experience.
So we have been working on the process of reforming teacher pay and how compensation moves forward in the future. And as our economy continues to recover, we're looking at making those pay issues a top priority for our state.
North Carolina's ranking in average teacher pay has moved up from 47th to 42nd.
But for someone who's researching doing business in North Carolina, just the fact that you're in the bottom quartile of states for teacher salary is used as a proxy for the quality of the education system and the state's commitment to the education system.
This is NC Spin.
After the legislature passed the budget last year, Governor McCrory scoffed at the $750 bonus for teachers on an episode of NC Spin.
Well, the $750 or $800 is not adequate.
Oh, it's
for
chicken
a pay
fee.
increase. It's chicken fee.
Those types of raises, especially for our experienced teachers, will not get us to the place where we can be competitive with other professions having the similar requirements for education and with other states.
In January, Superintendent Atkinson asked the legislature for a 10% increase for teachers. Why 10%?
Well, 10% would get us to being the highest in the Southeast.
A 10% pay hike would move North Carolina from 10th to 2nd among southeastern states.
We need to step up our game to increase teacher salaries in our state. And I believe that many of our elected officials, including our governor, recognize that we need to be at a better place than we are now.
But House Speaker Tim Moore called Atkinson's proposed 10% pay hike unrealistic. Former Governor Hunt disagrees.
Since we're so far behind, giving a 10% this year is a good idea. But I want to see a commitment over the next 4 years. Raising teacher pay, getting it up to where it ought to be so we can compete and have terrific teachers for our children ought to be the #1 priority. If we make it the #1 priority, we'll find the money.
In announcing his budget Friday, Governor McCrory proposed a raise and bonuses that would boost average teacher pay 5%, up to $50,000.
Areas that we need to increase, especially with regard to teacher pay and compensation.
Legislators have not yet committed to a number, but say they are committed to raising teacher pay.
We want to make sure that people are not just throwing out numbers, 5% or 10%. You really have to look at the overall system and the overall compensation and say, where do we need to go long term?
But Dollar says long term, the legislature is committed to raising teacher pay.
I think that you will see over the next several years, average teacher pay in North Carolina continue to move up in terms of the national rankings.
Hunt says getting teacher pay back up to the national average will help restore North Carolina's tarnished reputation.
Across America, they'll be talking about, look at what's happening in North Carolina. They're back on track. They are really going places in terms of education in their schools.
Next, why any new raises in teacher pay will come too late for this veteran North Carolina teacher.
We're not looked at as professionals. We're not respected, and we're helping produce the workforce.
To dig deeper into teacher pay in our state, how it stacks up against other states, and how that's changed over the years, go to WRAL.com and search keywords teacher pay. And you can follow WRAL Doc on Facebook and Twitter.
I miss teaching every day.
Jennifer Lowry is a 17-year veteran of Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools.
It's something I always knew I wanted to do. I love the moment that a kid gets it, and maybe they've been struggling with a concept and you say it in a different way or you do something different, and all of a sudden there's that moment where they say, oh, I understand now. That is why you do what you do as a teacher.
But the hours were long.
I would easily do 60, 65 hours a week as a teacher.
And there were budget cuts.
Positions were cut, but the workload was not cut. So the people that were left over had to absorb that workload.
And the state demanded more accountability.
Having to justify every decision that I made as a teacher.
She did get a raise last year.
But then I was not going to get any kind of an increase for 5 years unless something changed in the legislature. That's tough to know that the paycheck you're bringing home, which isn't a huge one, is going to stay the same for 5 years when everything else is getting more expensive.
It was the final bell. In December, Jennifer told her students she was leaving.
It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I couldn't even get the words out because I started crying. And even now, it makes me just sad that it's become a job that's not sustainable for a long amount of time. Not if you want to have a balance in your life.
Jennifer now writes lessons for an online education company.
I don't have that face-to-face interaction, and I do miss that. But at the same time, I like being home, and I'm a lot less stressed at the end of the day. And I feel like I have more of a quality of life now than I did before.
She says it's been hard to watch North Carolina's average teacher pay ranking drop so low.
It's definitely something that breaks my heart, and it's something that needs to be fixed, but I don't know how it will be fixed or when.
Jennifer says legislators might fix it if they had to spend a week in a classroom.
They need to see the struggles that we face every day. I think that would change the mindset in terms of realizing what we're asked to do.
She's glad politicians are talking about teacher pay raises.
To have a significant raise would at least be a step in the right direction in terms of recognizing what we do every day.
But Jennifer says she's heard the talk about raises before, especially in election years.
I'm not very hopeful that it's going to be anything significant. There are teachers like me all over the place, and they're either deciding to leave or they're on the verge, and it makes me sad. It's a great job, and it's an important job, and we need excellent people to do it, and the system is driving excellent people away.